What's up? Welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're gonna be doing a haircut. And I know so many of you guys ask for haircuts, so I'm gonna be showing you guys a haircut and how to do a bob haircut. This is a great classic haircut, especially a little modern twist. So I'm gonna show you guys exactly how to do that. Let's go. Excited to do this video today because so many of you have asked me to do some regular haircuts. I know a lot of times you want to see sometimes the really fancy stuff, but then you also want to know how to do those regular standard haircuts that you have people coming in asking for all the time. So I have my mom again, we're bringing her back, and I'm gonna do her bob haircut. This is a really simple haircut and it's a really great technique that you can use on a lot of your clients, and chances are you probably have a lot of ladies asking for this haircut already. So let's get started. All right, so we're gonna start out her haircut, and I'm actually gonna first start off by parting it at where she naturally parts it. So I always like to comb all the way back, and then I kind of push forward. You guys can see how I do that. You probably do that with your clients. And I kind of see where her hair naturally parts. So we can see kind of falls right in there. She does have a really strong cowlick right here, so I know that that's a pretty good area in order to find her part. So then from there, we're gonna comb it all the way straight down. Clean that up a little bit since I grabbed it. So we'll comb it all the way straight down and just part it off from there. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to find kind of her apex is about right here. You guys can kind of see that right about there. And I'm gonna take a line from here and I'm gonna draw a line all the way down to the back behind her ear. Now, one thing you can do to make your sectioning a little bit easier is what you wanna do is you wanna connect your comb down to your finger. So I'm gonna kind of place my finger, and this starts to just come naturally over time, but kind of right behind her ear, find my apex, draw that line, and now I can easily comb that section, and it's really nice and clean. So I'm not gonna clip this away, I'm just gonna kind of twist it out of the way. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So now that I have the front from the back and the two quadrants, I'm going to find my place where I left off her part, kind of that apex. And again, she does have a slight bit of a cowlick, so this is a really great way to figure out where their hair kind of needs to part. I usually do a little bit of a diagonal back depending on where their parting is, so it's not like straight back over here. So I'll do a little bit diagonal back. You guys can see it kind of goes into that whirl a little bit. So again, I'm going to find kind of the middle of her neck with my finger, and I'm gonna draw and connect the dots. So we're gonna go just straight down here, and we're gonna just split it into two quadrants. And then from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to find her occipital bone right about there, and I'm going to connect from her occipital bone to about the middle of her mastoid process bone. So I'm gonna do it on this side, and then I'll show you guys on the other side here. And again, always kind of connecting my fingers. We're gonna clip this up out of the way. So now I've got my connecting point here. This is right about the occipital bone. It could be a little bit lower. You guys can kind of see that occipital bone. And one way that you can do and find the occipital bone, I learned this trick from Travis Parker, but you can kind of see where her head starts to round off. You guys can see here's kind of my comb is on that flat plane, and here's the other flat plane. And you can kind of see right there where it's not touching either of them. So that's kind of right there. So her occipital bone is slightly a little bit lower, but I'm happy with that. And then this is her mastoid process bone right behind her ear. And so I'm gonna find kind of that middle point there. And again, find my finger and just connect the dots. And this just makes sectioning so easy and really clean, and not having to go back and clean things up. And we'll just clip that out of the way. So you guys can see I have my two diagonal back sections going straight down. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to have my client look down and tilt their head down, and then I'm gonna comb all of this section all the way straight down. And I'm gonna go in with my shears, and today we're gonna be taking off about 3/4 of an inch. So I like to, especially on clients where we are gonna be cutting kind of right on that neckline, I like to go through and I use the thin tooth comb, or thin tooth side of my comb, and I just kind of comb this down here, and I go right in, and I don't even have any elevation in the hair, and we just cut along this. And I am gonna do a little bit slightly rounded, a little bit longer towards the corners. I'm actually following the lines of where she has had her haircut before. So same thing, I'm just kind of pivoting my body all the way around. Same thing on this side. And I like to cut this at 0 elevation, like I said, without holding it in between my fingers, just cutting it right on that skin. I'll sometimes even go back in. You can see all these little tiny baby hairs that she has peeking out. And I always kind of check. Make sure to check my lengths on both sides. They look good. And now I'm going to take about an inch section from there and continue up this section until we've completely finished the back.
Easy come, easy go. No need to fight about it. Easy come, easy go. No stress, I'm good.
And sometimes when I get to this corner, because it is now, we're kind of elevating out just a little bit, I do always hold it T to the parting or just straight out. I'm not pivoting with her body, I'm actually over directing it straight back to kind of maintain some of that length. So sometimes on these corners after that first section, I will do that there. You guys can see all the rest of them, I am still cutting straight on the parting, comb down or natural fall, and then also cutting straight on the skin. Okay, so now that I finished the entire back section, everything was cut to pretty much 0 degrees, except for you can say that I did over direct these back straight. So now I'm gonna go to the sides, and I personally just like to split the side right in half, just straight down, nothing too complicated there. And so I'm gonna take my fine tooth side of my comb it all down, and I'm just going to cut her also again, kind of at natural fall. And one thing you do want to be careful of, you guys can see there is a little bit more length here. I always do kind of angle a little bit so it's a little bit longer in the front, slightly shorter in the back, nothing dramatic. We're not doing, you know, Posh Spice here where it's crazy long, but we also don't want to do it so that it starts to creep up, and as it dries, it gets shorter in the front. I definitely don't want that. That's typically not the most flattering angle on most clients. So what we're going to do is we're going to comb it down, straight down. And one thing that you do want to remind yourself of is there is an ear here, so sometimes you can just loosen that tension just a little bit here, and I'm just going to connect the dots here. Because I do her hair quite often, I know pretty much about how much I'm taking off at all times, but as you get to know your clients, you'll kind of start to know that stuff, where they kind of prefer their length to sit. So for her, I'm not asking her, okay, is it okay if I take off this much, but that would be something definitely you'd want to discuss in the consultation. So we'll just loosen that up here. That up, and there wasn't really much to take off there. Cool, so we're gonna do the same thing on the other side, exactly the same. So once I've cut both sides, I always like to double check in the mirror to make sure that, you know, everything is laying exactly. You can also stand in front of the client and do that, but for me, I think just looking in the mirror is perfect. So both of those sides look even. If something was a little bit off, you just want to go back and double check that you didn't elevate or anything like that. So now that we've checked all of our perimeter, we're gonna go into cutting her layers. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I've combed everything out, I've taken out all my sections. I'm going to take just a parting right here down through the back, the middle of the back. And this is gonna be kind of where I set my guideline. So I'm going to comb this out, and you guys can see I don't like section it all out and clip it away. I'm kind of more of a free form cutter, so I'm okay if it's not exactly perfect. But I'm gonna hold this up at a 45-degree angle. And all I'm gonna do is I'm going to kind of barely take off some of that, little bit of that corner there. And then I'm gonna take that exact same section and I'm gonna hold it down at a, I believe this is a low 45. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. Again, you guys know I'm not a very technical hair cutter. So there we go. So we've got our high 45, we cut off that corner, same thing, low 45. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm literally going to take this, and this is gonna be my traveling guide. So I'm just gonna take pivoting radials, and I'm going to travel with the guide, meaning I took my guide here and then I'm gonna split that in half and I'm gonna go from this here versus over directing it back towards the previous section. So I'm going to just take this, and the only time that I'm going to over direct a little bit back is when I get kind of right here just behind the ear, because I wanna make sure that we're maintaining some of this weight behind the ear and we don't end up with a hole. So we're going to pivot with this. Again, same thing, at 45, and you'll notice that some of the hair drops out because it doesn't need to. It's at this point too short. And then we're gonna take our low angle here. And just so you guys know, a lot of people ask me, like, how much do you take off? Again, this is a haircut that I do on her all the time. So her hair had grown about 3/4 of an inch since we had cut it last. So that's how much I'm taking off. If you guys ever wonder, how much do I take off from last time? Typically hair grows about 1/2 inch a month. and I looked at her roots for her color to determine how much we needed to cut off to maintain that kind of haircut. So definitely just something, a little trick that I use when you kind of forget how long it's been, or clients say do the same thing, you're like, shoot, you just follow the lines of what you did last time. And now we're getting to that little section right behind the ear here. So I am gonna over direct all of these back just slightly, up. Down here. I actually do kind of over direct this one quite a bit back. These ones up front here, I'm actually not gonna do the low 45, I'm just gonna do the high. Last one, kind of more her face framing, but we will wanna make sure that we get it in the layers. And then we're gonna literally do the same thing going through the other side. Now, sometimes people like to change their body, and I personally have always just stood on the same side as my client. You do want to be careful because when you are over directing, for instance, on this side, you're pulling it away from your body, but when you're over directing or over directing back on this side, you're pulling it towards your body. So you just want to make sure that if you are doing a 45, you're doing a low 45, you just want to make sure that you're aware of what your body is doing and that you're not doing something where you're over directing more on one side. One way you can tell if that's happening to you is if one side ends up a lot heavier with layers or one side ends up with a lot shorter layers. It's usually because your body was over directing something or not doing a true 45, or you're pulling it closer to your body. So just be really aware of that, and if sometimes that happens, sometimes you need to go back and double check, and sometimes you might need to take out just a little bit more weight in that area and just be really aware of your body. So now we're gonna continue on. I'm gonna keep doing this section and you guys can watch along. All right, so now that we've finished up all of our layers, I do like to take one other section and just kind of clean it up a little bit. So I always kind of take a straight across section here. Again, me being more freeform, I'm not gonna like part it all out. I just kind of do it with my fingers here. But I'm looking off her part line. So I'm gonna go hold it up straight up to the part, and I will kind of just clean that up just a little bit. And you will tend to see a little bit more of like a V. You won't really on this one because it's not gonna be crazy V, but you might see a slight bit of one based off of her part. So now that we've done all that, I'm going to dry her and then we're gonna finish the cut dry. All right, so we just finished our blow dry. I haven't even gone in with anything yet, but you guys can already just see she's getting some nice lift in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to literally follow the same sections that I had done before, and you guys can see we've got a lot of weight kind of build up in here. And you guys can see I did do point cutting when I did cut into it, but now what I wanna do is I wanna do some more deep point cutting and a little bit more just kind of break up that texture. So now you guys can see a lot more texture in there, and I actually will do the same thing, about 45 and then a low 45, just to also kind of break that up and get rid of a lot of weight. She does hold a lot of weight in her hair, and her hair tends to be pretty flat. So we definitely want to give her a little bit of texture and kind of break that up. So I'm going to go through our same pattern and just kind of do that deep, just kind of jaggedy point cutting, whatever you want to call it, and then just keep going around the head. Another reason why I like doing it this way too is it allows me to kind of go back in and check my haircut also. So you guys can see there's actually a little bit of length that I left in here. Must have been something that I either over directed, and so hey, that happens to all of us. I'm gonna just go through and just kind of clean that up ever so slightly. But it allows me to go back in and check my haircut. So that's something that's really helpful, especially when you're first kind of getting started. You might be a little bit nervous, like, ooh, did I miss a section or something heavy, or why is it heavy? Just go back through and kind of go back through your sectioning and check, hey, did I over direct something, or is this a little heavy or long in one area? And by doing it as you're texturizing, it allows you to not feel like awkward in front of the client where you're just like combing through their hair, but it allows you to kind of kill two birds in one stone. So her hair is definitely a little bit finer up here, kind of in front of her ears, so I don't really have a ton of texturizing to do back there. It's It's more just in this back section. So I'm gonna just keep going around the head, and I'm gonna show you guys what we're gonna do next. All right, so you guys can see her layers really kind of laying in there really nicely, and because we over directed, you guys can see it's kind of a little bit longer, kind of hugging this in. I still feel like there's a little bit of weight in here. She definitely holds a lot of weight down in this bottom section. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually just gonna kind of take that same section that I did for our haircut when we started it, kind of clip this out of the way. Again, it doesn't need to be anything perfect. But I'm gonna go in with my thinning shears and just add just a slight bit more texture down here. You totally could go in with point cutting. I personally just like thinning shears because it allows me to kind of get in a little bit deeper. So I'm just going to do kind of a low 45, and instead of going straight in and just cutting this out, I don't really like seeing a lot of these short pieces in there. So I'm just going to kind of notch it out right here. You guys can kind of see that I'm just barely getting in there. And that allows it to have a bit more texture again, so it's not just like a chunk of short hair. It's almost kind of slide cutting with our thinning shears. And it allows you to not have any lines or anything, especially because a lot of times clients down here, she's got a cowlick down here. We don't want to add to that. We don't want to make it more difficult for her. So just kind of slide cutting and getting just a little bit more of that weight out down here. I like doing it with thinning shears. You totally, again, could do it with regular shears. To me, I just really like how this looks. A little bit easier, a little bit less complicated. So I'm going to do that just to finish off this little bottom section here. All right, one more texturizing technique I am gonna do, because again, for her, she has this really kind of flat, limp hair that doesn't wanna do much. So I wanna add a little bit more internal texture just to hopefully give her a little bit more volume. So pretty much everything behind the ears, I am gonna go back in, same sectioning like I have been doing, and I'm gonna do the same thing, that same kind of slice cutting. Now I will keep it about 2.5 inches away from the root, so we don't wanna go too close to the root, because otherwise you could get some like funky cowlicks and stuff. But just kind of adding in a little bit of internal texturizing, and again, using these thinning shears. I really like them, and it works really well. All right, so I'm gonna do her face framing, and I just like to just barely add a little bit of face framing for her. So I'm just going to kind of hold this down and just do a little bit of slide cutting here. Nothing too crazy. She doesn't need a huge bang piece, but she does like a little bit of face framing and just a little bit of softness around her face. So we'll kind of connect this in, right in there. It kind of just gives her this nice little bang piece right there. And sometimes I will even take this up and add just a slight bit of texture right here. She doesn't really need it, it's pretty thin. So just kind of right in there. We'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, so I'm feeling really good about this, but just to kind of clean up her hairline, go ahead and look down for me. So what I like to do is I like to go in with my shears and just make sure that I cleaned up every little thing, that everything's laying really nicely, so I'll just kind of go through right here. And one thing you can do too is, you guys can see it's kind of solid in there. You can go through and clean it up with your shears, but then if you don't really like how solid that is, you can take your thinning shears, kind of lift it up here, you guys can see here, and you can either notch into it like this, or you could go straight across, and that just kind of softens that line just a little bit there. So we'll do that just a little bit here, just ever so slightly. And then what I like to do is, you guys can see she's got a little bit of these hairs underneath here. Those are kind of like neck hairs, so I'll go in with my trimmers, and I just kind of clean up that line just a little bit more. So even though I don't do male clients, I still have a pair of trimmers for this reason, especially when it comes to your bob clients. They've got a little neck hair. Sometimes I'll even lift it up. I just kind of clean up these little guys in here, create a stronger line, get rid of that peach fuzz that a lot of us have. This is great, especially if you're doing pixie clients or just clients that have kind of a shorter bob. All right, and here is our final result of our haircut. You guys can see how beautiful and stacked it looks, and just the fun layers that we got in there. We got definitely some great movement in there, and this is gonna just be a really fun haircut. It grows out so nicely, and your clients are gonna love it. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, I would love if you would hit the subscribe button and make sure to turn on the little bell for notifications, because I want to make sure that you don't miss out on any videos like this. Also, if you guys want to check out the color that I did on my mom's hair, you guys can check out that video below. I linked it there as well. And I just want to say thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't already come over to Instagram and said hi, please come over, send me a DM, let me know that you watch these videos, and I'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch these videos, and I'll see you guys next time.